Hi, and welcome back to What's on Her Plate podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Easton, and this is where we tell stories of vulnerability and victory. I have one of my favorite people in the entire world, one of my longest friends in Southern California, and someone who you guys are just going to fall in love with. Her name is Nicole Tilo. Can you say hello and introduce yourself?
Hello, I am Nicole. Thanks for having me.
We're going to talk today a lot about motherhood and grief and finding joy in grief and processing through grief. But before we kind of get into the deeper parts in the whole main course, start a little appetizer. Fill us in. If you can't tell as you start to hear her talk, she has an accent. Tell us where you're from, how'd you get here, what life kind of looks like for you now.
So I am from Gold Coast, Australia. I came out to America 10 years ago, my little 10-year anniversary. And I originally came out for a month. So I remember I was just like, Mom, Dad, I'm going to America for a month. I'm like, have fun, sweetie. And then I go back, I'm like, I'm going to go back for 6 months because I was doing a school with circuit riders, affiliate of YWAM, that whole organization. And then during my 6-month school, I met my husband. Well, we started dating. I had met him before. We started dating. And so I remember calling, I was like, I met someone. Like, oh, great.
And you're just like going and being like, oh, sweet, she's going to a little ministry school.
Yeah.
Oh,
nice adventure.
Yeah.
Like, oh, she's not coming back.
Yeah.
So 1 month turned into 10 years. I officially have been here, I'd say 8 years since we got married. I was back and forth for a few years before then. But yeah, we've been married 8 years. My husband, Ryan, and we have 2 cute little boys.
So cute.
Duke, who is 4, and Zeke, who is 2. They're really cute. They're pretty chill.
She has the most chill kids. Well, one, it makes sense because she's so chill.
Thanks.
No, you are. Even there's so many things. We've done so much life together, which is I'm so thankful for you. And even to backtrack on how we met, she came out for the school. I was dating someone at the time who was in the school, doing the school, whatever it looked like. And she was really cool. So I was like, here's my number if you ever need to get away. And they were sleeping in an auditorium, and I was like, just call me. And she did. And so I was so stoked. And that's how essentially we became friends. And I got to watch the whole love story of her and Ryan happen and everything. Yes. And then you ended up being one of my first friends to get pregnant. There was a time you guys came to the States, got your green card, started that whole process, and then you guys were like, oh, we're pregnant, which is actually crazy because I remember when it was my birthday.
I actually remember this.
Yeah. I was thinking I had just had a miscarriage.
The morning I found out I was pregnant, I went to your birthday, and that's when I found out, because you had told me you were pregnant.
Yeah.
And that's when I found out you had a miscarriage.
Yeah.
But I wasn't telling it because I had just taken the pregnancy test. I wasn't telling anyone. So I was like,
You're like, oh. Yeah. But it was then so fun because you were the first person that I watched grow baby and then have birth. There's so much I think that was happening in that time and everything, but I got to watch you become a mom, which was so beautiful. Can you tell a little bit of your story on just coming into motherhood, on did you guys plan to get pregnant? What was that thought process? Was there a conversation, are we having kids in the States or are we going to go back to Australia?
Yeah, so I think we always said, let's wait 1 to 2 years to have kids. And then 2 years just went by like that. I'm like, oh. But it was one of those things, it's let's we're not trying, but we're not trying, just whatever happens,
yeah,
kind of thing. We never had, I think we've always planned to stay put. Yeah. Here in America. I mean, usually I have a crisis once a year and I'm like, we're moving to Australia. And then I'm like, oh no, and I visit. I'm like, I'm good. I just need to visit. But yeah, definitely was going to stay put here. And navigating a health system that I didn't really know. I remember I went to, because I fell pregnant, it was December 2020. So it was still COVID. And you weren't allowed to, it was my first doctor's appointment ever in America, and because I had to go to get a referral to an OB, and I remember going into the appointment and then they were like, your husband can't come, like he has to wait outside the building. And I just cried in the appointment just because I was like, I haven't navigated any of this before.
I know even some of my friends from like Germany and everything, like figuring out the whole of like, okay, we know we're supposed to be here in the States. We know we want to raise our kids here, but yeah, it's not a system that you grew up with or that's normal. Too, I think that is always just, I mean, even as adult in general, I'm still learning how to navigate the health system and the whole insurance stuff. But it was cool watching you go through it a few steps before, because then you're like, oh, I like this OB. Hey, did you know you can apply for this insurance thing?
Yes,
which being a forerunner in a friend crowd of having a kid first, you are doing everything first so people can learn off you.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of go more into like today's like main course of everything, which is really talking about grief in motherhood. Can you talk a little bit about your story of loss, your story of grief? When did that start? And that whole journey?
Yeah, so Duke, he was 4 months old. And, you know, I feel like 4 months postpartum, you're just kind of coming out of that newborn bubble. You're kind of figuring things out a little bit.
Maybe sleeping like 3 hours.
There's always the 4 month sleep regression and teething starts, but you're like coming to your feet a little bit more. Yeah, I remember it was actually Super Bowl Sunday. We get home and my mom was FaceTiming my husband. And he comes up the stairs because he was unpacking the car and stuff. He comes up the stairs and I had taken Duke up. He's like, why aren't you answering your phone? I'm like, I've had my phone on me the entire time. He's like, well, your mom's calling me. And it's just, usually she would try call me first.
Yeah.
And it was just like immediately, just like my heart sunk. I was like, something's wrong. And so he answered the phone. Mom hands it, and like we spoke and she's like, Dad has passed away. Like Dad's died. And that was like the moment in motherhood where just like everything switched and it became this like still this immense joy, but then this immense pain and grief journey started from there. And I'm sure it's like really traumatic days. You can just remember every single detail. It was the day that Duke first rolled over for the first time. And that was actually the last thing I sent my dad. And my mom even later said like, oh, he looked at that picture in the morning and he said, oh, wow, such a clever boy, you know. So I texted you, I texted some friends, and I said, please pray like my dad is unconscious. Like I couldn't even like fathom that he had died. So I said, please pray. And then I think sometime I called Mom back and kind of just really realized, talked to Ryan, been crying with him. Then he said, why don't you just like call some friends? And I remember just calling you and one other friend, another close friend. And then I was just met with you answered the phone and I was just crying. And then all you did, and my other friend too, was just cry with me. And cry so hard, like crying just as hard as I was. I don't think we spoke any words. It was just tears. I mean, that was like that impacted my whole grief journey too, because it was that instant village feeling of just like, I'm not alone in my grief.
I remember all of this because I was pregnant with Lincoln at the time. And I remember getting the call, first getting the text and then getting the call. And then I met you guys I don't know if it was that day or...
That was at night that he died. So
it's the following day I met you guys at Fermentation Farm.
Yeah.
And I can remember seeing you again and just hugging you and crying. Yeah. Also not being able to comprehend too of like, he's gone, as you're then also holding Duke at 4 months old. And like the last time I had seen your dad was at your wedding, and even just watching of the like, what a last beautiful moment. Like I got to see him for that and, you know, sharing that experience. And then for you to be like, this is just like unfathomable. Can you kind of break down what, like, this all goes down, this everything, but like you have a 4-month-old. So like what were you experiencing then? Because obviously at 4 months, they're still, just coming out of the newborn phase and everything. What was that kind of experience of being able to walk through this, or like have this grief, have this like traumatic incident happen, but also then kind of now looking into your newborn eyes, who he has no idea what's going on. Like, I would love to even know, now that our boys are older, I said something to Lincoln about, but like, if you like had any thought processes of being sad around Duke, because I just had my uncle pass and I like prepped him on like, hey, grandma is going to be really sad. What did it look like for you? How did you feel grieving around Duke? How did you feel too also being like, well, he's so precious and so like just this sweet ball of joy. So how was that dynamic for you?
Yeah. I mean, 30 minutes after I had received a call, however long it was, Duke woke up crying. And, like, I had to go feed him. You know, it was, like, immediately in this world of pain. And then, oh, yes, back to mum duty, you know. But I think because he was 4 months old. He wasn't speaking really anything. He was kind of asleep to the world still at that time. There wasn't ever any point I was like, oh, I can't. I never had the thought, like, oh, I don't want to grieve around him or bring maybe like that. I don't want to bring him down or make, be like a sad mum in front of him. I actually remember I would be holding him sometimes and I'll just be crying and he would look at me and just start laughing. And then I would just start, I'm like laughing, crying, this whole thing. But he was so little.
Yeah.
It is this, huge juxtaposition between this immense grief, immense pain, this death and life and joy. And I feel like he almost, in that season, he was such a joy for me to cling to and maybe even helped me not to swell out in grief or to get lost in my grief, or because there was that, I was like, oh, I want to be, I want to experience this first year just as joyfully as I had planned or anticipated to. It's a year full of so many firsts, everything, and just like their eyes just opening to the world and experiencing the world, and, they're learning to crawl and walk and talk and all the things. So I feel like he really steadied me, maybe, I would say. I never had the thought of, oh, I can't grieve around him. Like, I didn't separate them in my mind. They're always there to get like joy and grief. It was just this journey of them being together.
Yeah.
I didn't create like expectation on myself on how that was going to look at all.
Yeah. I mean, even from the outside and stuff like that, my thought of like even, I have to prep my son to experience sadness. As someone who walked through both and experienced both and maneuvered both in motherhood, what would you kind of say to a mom who like is going through a passing of a parent, is having this hard time, does have little ones, and it maybe felt like she had to separate it? What would you tell her from your experience on like, you actually don't have to? Like, are there any little things that you'd be like, hey, if you're experiencing this during this, anything that you did, like even like you mentioned of like, oh, I was holding him and crying at the same time, or nursing him and he made me laugh. Like, what were other things that you kind of went through that you're like, oh, I held both and it was really beautiful?
Yeah. I think something that Ryan said to me like right at the beginning, I want to make sure I remember this right. Not taking his words out of context. He's like, I didn't say that.
He's like, excuse me?
Well, that I remember him saying was like, obviously grief is like lifelong. I'm still on a journey of grief. Like, it never separates from me. It's like a part of me now. But something that he said in the beginning is like, this is your time to really grieve your dad. Like, it's like a set aside, separate, where it's so raw. And he's like, grieve him well. And then even thinking of Duke, I was like, well, I want to show him like grief isn't a bad thing at all. I want to show him how to grieve well too. And that isn't, from what I walked through, everyone's experience is different. But to me, I was like, I don't want to get lost in it. I still want to like remember and have those moments. And if there's a hard day, there's a hard day, and that's okay. I would have different things that I would do during those times. Sometimes I wrote a letter to my dad, or when his phone was still working in the beginning, I'd like send him a text message, or just like call a family member and talk about him. Or, just like I would do different things like that. And there was never an expectation of what it had to look like. And sometimes it looked like telling funny stories, or, you know, and some days it looks like not thinking about it at all. And that obviously happens more and more as like the years go on. But I just wanted to be a good example of like, it's okay to grieve.
Yeah.
It's okay to be sad. It's okay to have all of these emotions, and it's okay to have them all at once.
Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so good, I think, and also really encouraging for anyone who's listening to have permission and stuff, especially like it sounds like Ryan encouraged it. And so if you're listening and no one's given you quote unquote permission or like encouraged you, I think this is something that I hope you guys feel really encouraged by in the grieving process. Our producer Maddie also has lost a parent. We were sitting before this and we were just kind of talking about things, and you guys were kind of sharing similar experiences and similar feelings, which I think we'll talk more about. But I would love to kind of navigate on some of your unique experiences during your loss, which are you're just had a baby, you're living in the United States, your dad's back in Australia, and it's COVID. So can you walk everyone through like that crazy process of going back for the funeral, going back to see family? Because I can remember it was just this crazy, like calling different embassies, calling different things.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes I reflect back on like first year of motherhood. I'm like, did I do enough? You know, just like that. I'm like, I didn't do all like the little things or like, you know, the cute Pinterest things. Like, I would have loved to do more. But then I really think back and reflect and I'm like, no, there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was COVID. My whole family's in Australia. I'm just trying, you know, immediately just trying to get back to family. But obviously there was a few more hurdles still. At that time, Australia was pretty locked down. Hopefully I'm getting all the details right. But you couldn't have, if you weren't an Australian citizen, you couldn't get into the country. So I had to ring someone in Australia, get permission for my husband and son to enter the country because of certain grounds, like it was for a funeral. And so got them permission. Duke doesn't have a passport. So I rang to like get an emergency passport appointment, even just all the little things. They say, oh yeah, so we have, and you had to have your flight booked first. So I'm just booking a flight, ring them like, when's your flight? Like, okay, we have an appointment in San Francisco tomorrow. I'm like, I can't go to San Francisco, like as well, like
an hour flight.
Like, I'm like, I can't leave my son, like he doesn't take a bottle.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I can't do that. I'm like, can you look for a different date for me? Like if I moved my flight one more day, like, well, you're gonna have to move your flight first. So then I'm calling the flight. I'm like, can I please move my flight? Move the flight, call them back. I'm like, this is the date of my flight. And like, yeah, you can go down to San Diego. It was like in a day or two. I'm like, great. I'm like, they'll give me the passport, right? Like, yeah, they'll sort you out. Even drive down to San Diego, which, you know, with like a newborn, all this stuff, it's always a mission. Get down there, get the appointment, get it all situated. I'm like, okay, so do I just wait here for the passport? No. You got to come back tomorrow. I'm like, I fly out tomorrow.
Out of LA.
Yeah. Like, yeah, so your flight's not till night. There's people that are before you. So you need to come back in the morning. I'm like,
crazy.
Great. Yeah. Add that to the list. And then getting into Australia, it was like we had to quarantine. There was like a 1 week quarantine in some states and 2 weeks in the other. And my home state still had a 2 week quarantine, and they weren't going to let us out of the full 2 weeks. So we flew into like the normal state that will like into Sydney. It's a major airport. We flew into there and did our 1 week quarantine, which actually wasn't that bad. We had a really nice hotel room. They like bring you food to your door and like knock, and you have to wait a certain amount of time before you open the door and get your food and scurry back in.
Crazy.
Yeah, but at the time, like, you were allowed to do Uber Eats and stuff, and we were like, actually, it wasn't that bad in hindsight. Like, and it actually felt like a moment of pause, like, in amongst all of this chaos.
Yeah.
To just, like, we couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So,
and Duke is still so little that at the point he's probably
so
napping majority of the day.
He did really great. So we would put him on his little play mat, and, like, as the sun would set, we wouldn't turn on any of the lights, and we would just put him in his PJs, and he would just fall asleep right there, and they would just transfer
Angel
him.
baby.
He was really chill. Yeah, so then it was just navigating a bunch of things to even try and get to Australia, to try and get to my family, to be with them. Absolute chaos.
Yeah. What would you say in like during that time period? Do you feel like you almost just went into like mission mode of like, all right, I just need to get to family? Or do you feel like explain kind of how your body felt? Because I think that's
Yeah.
there could be some experiences that a lot of people are like, I don't know, I can't feel, or my body did this, or how did your body react? And like, even curious of like, were you still able to produce milk? Because I know you exclusively breastfed. I know that's like a concern of a lot of moms of like, oh my gosh, my body's shutting down. So like, what did your body do during that whole time period?
I definitely remember, I don't know the terminology at all, but like in my brain, I just felt like things were just like neurons or something was just snapping. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the most amount of stress. And Ryan was obviously there to really help calm me down. I'm like, we need to get on a plane tonight. He's like, calm down. We got some things to do first. I'm like, okay, and steady me in that way. But one of my first thoughts was, because I had a goal at the time to breastfeed until he was 1. And one of my first thoughts was my milk supply.
Yeah.
Like, I just know that I knew under chronic stress that it would go away. I was just like, oh my goodness, my milk supply. And I think one of the things I kind of really showed up for myself as well, I have a background in nutrition and I really love that and thrive in that. And so I kind of had this information ready to go where I was like, I know I need to eat more calories. I know I'm going to need more minerals to make up for the amount that I'm losing just through stress.
Yeah.
I didn't do everything perfectly, but I just had that thought and had that. I always was like, I took care of myself in eating well because I knew it would help Duke. Do you know what I mean? So it was like, yeah, I was taking care of myself, but I was doing it for Duke, you know? But I in hindsight, that was a really good way that I was able to support myself.
Yeah. What was like one snack thing that if you could pull on like your nutrition background and stuff like that, you have a certificate. You give us your credentials too. So then when I say
I don't even know. So I studied nutritional therapy. So it's just very like holistic, food-based. It's not diagnosing or treating. It's just helping people with their symptoms, supporting them through food and lifestyle.
Which is honestly, it used to be so intimidating. I used to like, which people know, like she was the first crunchy friend that I had.
I don't even want that label.
And now it's like, I feel like you've changed a ton on like your approach and she is phenomenal. This is just a side note, just to like brag on you. If you want to know on like how your body functions and how food functions in the body and how your organ functions and doing it well, I feel like you do a great job. Like you're so educated.
I will say it's like one of those things, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Well, you know more than me, which is great. Can you kind of share, like, you talked about, like, I knew I needed to nourish myself. Is there one food thing, whether it's a snack that a mom could grab or something that someone could pre-make for her or something that you would be like, this is, if you are grieving and you don't have an appetite and you need to nourish yourself, this is a really great go-to thing that was easy for me and is really good for you.
I mean, usually it's you try and eat like whole food based, you know, and this is a time you could really lean maybe into supplements. I just remember I would try and add as much as I could to whatever thing I was eating. Like, is it a yogurt bowl? Add a scoop of collagen, add even just like vitamin C powder, bee pollen, like a whole bunch of extra like sea salt, whatever, to it just to get something in.
Yeah, that's good.
It's not like for perfection. It's just eating enough calories, I think, is the main thing too.
Yeah.
And doing the best with what you have.
Yeah, which I think, I mean, I know me under stress, I don't eat.
Yeah.
And stuff. So even like just the simple reminder of like, hey, the more you eat, the better you'll feel.
Yeah.
And stuff just physically, even if it's not helping mentally right away, when your body feels better, your brain functions a little better too.
And I remember even just the weeks after, people would just text to bring food all the time. It felt like that postpartum period all over again. People were just like, or giving gift cards for food or whatever. That was a main way a lot of people showed up for us, and that really helped too.
So let's talk kind of more on that, because I think something that I learned and I was learning in the conversation with you and Maddie both before this is like very similar to becoming a mom and going through pregnancy and labor and delivery is you don't know until you know and stuff. And so like, praise God, my natural instinct was just to cry with you and stuff. But like, as someone who maybe isn't as close or that's not their first natural instinct, how would you recommend someone grieve alongside someone that it didn't happen to? What did it look like? Obviously you really appreciate the offering of food and stuff like that. How would you kind of talk about grieving in community, I guess?
I think as well, there isn't any wrong way to show up for, like, if you're showing up for someone in any capacity, like, I know that would impact me so much. No matter if it was just, you know, you can tell when some people don't know what to say and they're just like, I'm sorry for your loss. And like, that's fine. Like, there is no perfect or wrong thing to say. Yeah, I don't feel like there's any wrong way that someone can show up for you during that season.
Yeah.
And even just saying I'm sorry for your loss, like that means a lot. Just like the acknowledgement of like, hey, I know you're going through a lot right now and I can just offer you like these comforting words or, you know, or I can offer you a meal, or I know during that time you as well were going through a lot of chaotic stuff in your life. We would just go on walks all the time, really spent a lot of time together in that season, just like embracing the chaos of each other's lives and debriefing and just being someone that to hear whatever the process was that day.
Yeah.
And then even I would say beyond the initial 6 months or whatever, that really fresh, painful time, beyond that, I think even today when people text me, like especially around the time of, you know, I don't expect anyone to remember. That's okay. You know, I don't have that expectation on anyone. But the feeling, like the impact it has on me, even when someone texts me like, hey, thinking of you this month, or, you know, when it's surrounding, because it was also, it's just a hard month because it was like my dad's birthday and it was just a lot. You know, you remember like, oh, this is the last time I talked to him. This is the last day I texted him. This is the last day, you know, all those things. Just even the text like, hey, I'm thinking of you. I feel like even extending past that initial. But I think if you have the heart and desire to show up for someone, even if it's just words or a card or flowers, I don't think any of it would be like all of it feels comforting.
Another friend who lost her mom young, she was 12, talks a lot about that. She's like, there's this period right after loss that everyone shows up, but eventually life continues for everyone. And so then you go into a stage of grief that is more solo and stuff. And so would love to even hear on like, what has your solo grief looked like? And now, you know, he passed for over 4 years ago now. What is the kind of evolution of grief looked like for you?
Yeah, it definitely is like an onion. There's never ending layers. And I knew that from the beginning. And I know it's a lifelong journey now. It's like almost a part of you. I remember in the beginning, it was like I was grieving just him and his life. And then I was grieving like the dynamic changes of family. And, you know, there's so many different stages, like, or the first Christmas, or obviously milestones like that. And then I even felt like this year, I was really just grieving my dad as like, I am a daughter that lost a dad.
Yeah.
You know, and the impact of that, like, man, I miss my dad, you know, and I know that like it'll probably be another thing next year, or maybe it'll be the same thing, and that's okay. But I remember once that, you know, that initial period of grieving where everyone's very conscious and aware, then life goes on normally. I remember just every day I would just like be thinking of him in the moment of his death, and like all the details of it just running through my mind every single day. And I'm like, oh, no one knows that like this is running through my mind every single day. But it was just, of course, you don't expect anyone
it's to read your mind and stuff. But that's when that process of like, it still affects your everyday reality so much. And what it even sounds like now, and I know through other friends of grieving, still every day.
Yeah.
Just like, and you kind of said it earlier, and we were talking of like, when you become a mom, it changes your everyday reality. And you're even kind of then saying of like, the same is with grief. And I know you had mentioned on talking about like when you meet someone else that has gone through grief, there's just this mutual understanding. Can you kind of talk to that mom right now of like who's also lost a parent, or has gone through loss with someone close in the stages of motherhood? Like if you look them in the eyes, like, is it something you just feel? Is it just this deep understanding, or like,
I mean, beforehand, it would just be like, oh, I'm sorry for your loss. But now it's just like, I feel a deep, just ache. Like, ugh, I know how you're feeling. And I was just like this mutual ache, you know, this mutual pain. And even that just feels like, oh, you get it.
yeah.
You know?
And there's something that comes with like when you feel like you feel understood.
Yeah.
And I think that's like what's really beautiful of like, even in, it's not like there's, yes, I know there's communities in grief. And that's why like some people really love group therapy because they can have that experience. But I think that's why it's also really beautiful when you meet someone now, you can look them in the eyes and they can feel and understand that they're seen.
Yeah.
And I think like that's really what I hear in what you're saying of like, oh, there's a seenness, there's an understanding, there's this like comprehension that supersedes environments that you can really like then stand with them. Like you mentioned, it's like, it's not like you're doing anything above and beyond. It's there's just this deep knowing, which I think is so beautiful.
Yeah.
So to kind of like wrap things up, if you are talking to a mom who's recently going through grief, through loss, is there anything that you can encourage her by? Something that maybe that you can encourage her of reminding her of the parent that lost? Maybe it's something that has really helped you on the day-to-day basis. Anything that comes to mind?
I think just encouraging to have no expectation. And that would be my biggest encouragement. If I met someone today that just like needed advice for their grief journey, but like having no expectation, I feel like was the best thing I did for myself, where I just knew that some days I'm going to cry and some days I'm going to laugh and some days I'm going to do both, and that's okay. There doesn't have to be, I don't have to understand the whys behind everything all the time.
Yeah.
And also not suppressing any of that either. Whether it's, oh, I don't want to be sad because I don't want to, you know, other people feel sad to put that on anyone, or it's like, oh, I don't want to be too joyful or be smiling because I'm sad about, you know, it's like, it's this weird balance and dance of both, and just encouraging that it's just being true to like yourself in that season and where you're at, and it changing every day and not having the expectation of it looking a certain way will set you up for the best success in your grief journey possible.
This was fun, just beautiful. I loved hearing your process on things that I watched but didn't get to fully understand. So thank you for bringing me into the understanding. Also, thank you for trusting me with your process then, and trusting me now with it, and trusting it to share it, because I know so many women are going to be so impacted by this. So thank you for sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Can you plug where people can follow you? Nicole's not a social media girly.
But it's there.
Yes, but a lot of her heart and passion is behind nutrition. Right now she's in the season of motherhood, but I know she's been in works for this for a while, of some amazing like different nutrition insights, tips, tricks on, you know, how to nourish yourself, how to care for yourself. So if people do want to keep up with your life and see that
look.
have a little looky. She also has a beautiful family. So like you'll see just dream beach California life. So, but she posts maybe once
a year.
Once every 6 months, maybe.
My husband posts more than me.
Yeah. So. He's the one who's more active. Ryan knows what's going on more because
he does. And if you can't get in contact with me, text him as well.
Yeah. But what's your handle? Where can people find you?
I think it's just Nicole Tilo. Nicole_Tilo.
Okay.
Something like that.
There's
not many.
We'll put it in the description. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This was the end of the season. This is episode 10 of season 1. So we'll probably
I know.
Actually, it was we planned it that way. Go back and listen to all the episodes we did in this season. We have some on my backstory. We have some into motherhood, into foster, into learning how to manage a career in motherhood. There's so many fun things for you guys to listen to. We encourage you guys to go back, listen to them. Let us know what you guys like about them. Like, comment, share all the fun things. And then we'll see you back in season 2. Love ya.